Alrighty, well, while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself and then I'll throw things over to our adjudicator that's joining us today. But if we have not had a chance to meet yet, hi, my name is Ren Durstock. I am GSA's alumni coordinator. So I kind of help folks once they participate in our program figure out all the things that go into scholarships, grant money, anything else that you get as a member of being a part of the GSA community. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys about visual art today because I myself am a theater designer. So a lot of that, the same principles go into visual art. Feel very at home with our visual art folks here. One of those people being our facilitator and our faculty member who's joining us tonight, Sean Starowitz. Sean, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Ren, nice to see you again. Thanks for everybody for tuning in on the webinar for visual art. So I'm Sean Starowitz. I'm a GSA alum myself from many, many, many moons ago from visual art. But I am chair, and then I run kind of one half of the sculpture ceramics kind of component for the studio discipline. As you guys know, or maybe some don't, but as part of the applicant guide, visual art surveys, drawing and painting, sculpture and ceramics, and printmaking. So I'm the sculpture ceramics component of all that. And I'm just excited to be here and answer any questions you guys might have.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are going to jump into that applicant guide that Sean mentioned a little bit later tonight, but we're going to start just by giving you an idea of what GSA is like at a broader sense, what the program's like. So I'm going to pull up that little presentation I have. If at any point you guys have any questions tonight about anything we talk about, we are through Zoom, so we have access to a little Q&A feature here. So you can either drop those questions in the Q&A feature. We'll talk about that at the end of our presentation here tonight, go through all those questions, make sure nobody leaves still wondering things. But if you are, you can always reach out to us as well at GSA admin, or you can drop things in the chat. We just might get a little lost in there. So definitely direct you to the Q&A. If you can't figure that out, the chat's right there as well. All right, so I'm going to pull up our little presentation here. See, already you should be seeing my screen. Let me make sure I've got myself set up here. All right, so here we are, Governor School for the Arts GSA Art Form webinar. Today, we're going to be meeting with our art form adjudicators. So just starting out talking about this webinar and the other webinars that we host like it. This is one of the final GSA art form webinars that we are hosting as a part of this series. We've had a lot of our other 10 art forms featured towards the beginning of October, and then we've got a few coming up this first week of November coming down the pipeline. So if you see an art form here that has already taken place that you are interested in learning more about, the good news is you can access these webinars at any time on our website, KentuckyGSA.org. You can go back, watch those on your own free time. If you have any questions, if you want somebody to go through the applicant guide with you, that is what these are here for. If you're interested in film and photography, we've got that webinar coming up next week. That's going to be November 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then vocal music is going to be Thursday, November 6th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, excuse me. So those are our art form webinars that are coming down the line. If you are interested in learning more about GSA in a broader sense, we've also got these little GSA 101 webinars that we host. So we try to do one a month in the fall. We had one back in October that you can currently view on our website. We've also got one coming up on November 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern and one Wednesday, December 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern. So that's a great way for you to get introduced to GSA even more so than you're going to hear about tonight, or check out some of our other art forms that you might be interested in. But if there are ever any questions that aren't answered on those webinars or you aren't able to attend any of them, we are still here for you 100%. You can reach us out to us at any time, either by giving us a call on the phone. That's our phone number right there. You can send us an email, or if that's a little bit too professional, too kind of scary for you, you can also DM us on Facebook or Instagram. I run both of those social media pages, so if you DM us there, I'm going to be the one that is reading your message and responding to it. I'm always happy to field any questions you guys have in those DMs, and the folks that run our GSA info at email address and our helpline are also always happy to help you guys. So that's how you can contact us moving forward. But if you're just learning about GSA, what is GSA? It is a community of artists that are empowering Kentucky's next generation of creative leaders. And what that looks like in practice is a 3-week college conservatory style training over the summer. So high school sophomores and juniors are able to live on a college campus with us for 3 weeks, and you get to experience one of 10 different art forms. It's a very rigorous program, but it's super fun. It's a great way to experience your art form, and it's a great way to check out what it might be like if you decide to go to college after high school. This year, we are moving the program from the University of Kentucky, where we've been for the past several years, and we are going to be on Northern Kentucky University's campus this summer, which we're all really excited about. It's up in Highland Heights, Kentucky, Campbell County, and we're really excited to see how the program looks in this new space and get to learn that community and all of the great things that it has in store for us. So these are GSA's 10 art forms. You can apply for up to 2 of these art forms if you're interested in visual art and something else, but ultimately you can only attend GSA for 1 art form, and you can only attend 1 time. Since GSA is completely tuition free for all of our students, we try to give as many opportunities as we can for folks to attend GSA, and that one of the ways that we do that is making sure that people only attend GSA once. But if you want to attend GSA, you can attend for architecture and design, creative writing, dance, drama, film and photography. Our newest art form is graphic design, instrumental music, musical theater, visual art, and vocal music. So any of those 10 art forms we're going to be talking about at GSA this summer. But what does it look like to apply for GSA? So it's a 2-step process, right? The first round is virtual for everybody, and that's what majority we're going to be talking about tonight. And then our second and final round of auditions is hybrid depending on the art form. If you're here for visual art, that final round audition will also be will also be virtual for you, excuse me. So you don't have to worry about getting to campus in March like some of our other art forms will. All of your final round auditions will happen virtually online. Some items of note as you're thinking about applying for GSA: GPA, ACT scores, SAT scores, none of that is required for GSA. It's always great to keep in mind because if you do end up attending GSA with us, it's a great way to get some better scholarships out of it, but we don't really care how great you are at taking a test. We just want to know who you are as an artist. So we don't ask for any of that kind of information. You just have to be a junior or a sophomore in high school to apply. Like I said, you can apply for up to 2 art forms, and there is an application fee to apply for GSA in certain cases. So it's $35 to apply for 1 art form, and if you want to apply for 2, there's an additional $15 fee for that second application. However, if you qualify for free or reduced lunch at school, you do not have to pay to apply for GSA. All you have to do is check a little box on our application. We don't ask for any waivers, any paperwork, anything like that. We take you at your word, and that basically means if you do not pay for lunch at school, if your entire district does not pay for lunch at school, you do not have to worry about applying to be a member of the GSA community. We never want finances to be a barrier for somebody to participate in GSA. So if that application fee is an item of concern for you, reach out to us and we can talk about what that can look like moving forward. But a really easy way to negate that fee is if you are a member of the free and reduced lunch group. So what does the application timeline look like, right? Our applications are already open. They opened a couple weeks ago, so you can submit an application as soon as you log off of this webinar tonight. You might have already started your application. If you have, 2 thumbs up for you. We do have applicant guides available on our website as well. One of those we're going to be looking over tonight, but if there are any other art forms you're interested in, you can find those on our website too. The application deadline. So applications are open. You can submit them up until Sunday, January 18th, 2026. I don't recommend waiting until Sunday, January 18th to submit that application. Get it in as soon as possible. They are pretty lengthy applications, but that is your deadline that is coming down the road. Once all of our applications are submitted and those are closed, we're going to announce our final round audition list, that finalist list, on Friday, February 13th. And then those final round auditions will take place between March 12th and 14th, 2026. So that is when your portfolio review is going to be scheduled remotely that weekend. Just good to keep in mind as people start planning their spring breaks, their spring semesters, things like that. That's kind of an overview of what we've got coming up for GSA. Alrighty, so very quick and easy. That is our kind of intro to GSA, what you need to know for tonight. Sean, as I am pulling up our visual art applicant guide here, can you give us an overview of what the visual art department is on a broader scale, or maybe what it looks like day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ren. So everyone, the visual art, as we call GSA, is kind of like the Art Olympics, the Summer Art Olympics. So you're in the studio quite a bit, right? Almost all day long, apart from a series of, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then potentially morning and evening performances when those happen. So essentially, over the course of the 3-week program, every student, every young artist participates in those studios that I mentioned, which are painting and drawing, sculpture and ceramics. We usually front load the ceramic on the front end of it, and then transfer into the sculpture studio. And then also a variety of printmaking techniques are explored in the printmaking studio. So it's a very like all intensive, you live, breathe, eat art for 3 weeks, which is really special. That's the kind of summer college conservatory aspect of it. A lot of the faculty members are professional and practicing artists. So we bring that to the table as well. So we're working kind of outside of your traditional high school curriculum or your AP curriculums and really kind of like counterbalancing that with new opportunities, new materials, new studies, new projects.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always fun over in the visual art building, seeing everything that you guys are making. So I'm very excited to see what everybody comes up with this summer as well. Alrighty, you should be seeing our visual art applicant guide now. I think that just finished loading. So yeah, we're going to kind of go through this. This document is available on our website as well. If you are on the page that says apply for GSA 2026, you can scroll down to where it lists all of our applicant guides and access the visual art one along with all of our other art forms. So they're pretty easy to find. If you have any trouble, talk to GSA admin, we'll help you find it. But everything starts with a little table of contents to help you navigate the whole document here and kind of a program description of what Sean just said. If you're more of a visual person, we also have a link to photos from GSA 2025, our most previous year here, for the visual art program. So if you want to see more examples than what you're going to see in this applicant guide of actual students like you working on visual art in the studio, that's a great place to find it. There's some pretty cool photos on there done by our documentarian, Josh Wooldridge, who is really, really great at his job. So it's cool to see what he's able to capture in the studio every day. But let's get talking about our preliminary round of applications. So all of the things that we're going to talk about in this section are what is due January 18th. So it's a big portfolio chunk, but that's why we give you several months to complete this application, and we recommend that you get things done early. So we'll kind of go through bit by bit, and I'll give Sean a chance to talk about what he's looking for. We'll say what we're looking for on the GSA admin side of things as well. But all of this is submitted through a platform called Accepted. So we have it linked in this document as well. It's linked on our website. You should be able to find it pretty easily, but you're able to upload all of your materials, answer all your questions that you need to through that platform, and it's all kind of in one central location. So the first thing that I like to talk about when we're talking about our application are the recommendations forms. I recommend you get done with this first because this is something that isn't 100% in your control of when it gets done. We ask you to identify 2 people who can complete recommendation forms in support of your GSA application. So these are adults in your life who can speak to who you are as a person outside of your portfolio or outside of how you see yourself, talking about who you are in your community, who you are in the classroom. It can be a teacher, a guidance counselor, maybe a mentor that you have in your church community or some other kind of rec community outside of school. If you take private lessons in visual art, you can have that art teacher speak on behalf of you. Just anyone who isn't in your immediate family. We hope that your immediate family really support your art and love your art, but unfortunately they can't speak to that in your GSA application. So Sean, can you give us an idea of what it is you're hoping to hear from these recommendation forms?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ren. So, what we're looking for, and Ren already kind of discussed this a little bit, is just like who you are as a person and how you are in community. That's a really big aspect of GSA is the community experience, right? It's students and young artists from all across every county, every holler, every part of Kentucky, right? And we're there for a very short period of time. So this allows us to kind of see who you are, what your interests are, how you interact with others in the classroom and beyond. If you volunteer for a particular organization or if you're a member of a club, those kinds of things are always really helpful for us to kind of understand. And it's okay if you're not involved in those things as well, right? Like those aren't just requirements by any means, but those individuals who you might work with. So, I know we have some, schools that don't necessarily have art teachers, right? So that kind of stuff is really important. So just knowing the right kind of, adult and mentor figures in your life to ask, certain teachers, art teachers, coaches, those kinds of things are always really helpful for us to just make sure you're a well-rounded human, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah, so what that looks like in the application, you submit the email address for this person, for these two people through Accepted, and then we send them an email asking them to fill out this form. So I always recommend reaching out to these people before you put their email addresses down so they know to expect that email. It's going to be showing up in their inbox. They know to look out for it. And make sure you have the correct email address for them. Make sure it's spelled right. We have the opportunity to go in and change things if you mistype and mix up the letters a little bit, but it's always easy to streamline it and get that email to them as soon as possible. And then follow up with them as well and say, hey, I'm really trying to get my application in as soon as possible. Have you had a chance to fill out this recommendation form yet? Do you need anything in order to do that? Just make sure you stay on top of them so you are in charge of your application as well. But it's a form. They don't need to submit any letters on letterhead. They don't need to mail anything to us. It should be pretty easy, just a couple of questions here so they can answer those questions that we just talked about. But that is the recommender form. The next portion of your application, I kind of view it in three parts here. So there's a personal short essay, keyword on short there. It's 250 words max. It's really not that long. And we just ask you to answer a question on the page. And that question is, how can / why should the art form you are applying in be of importance to your community or society as a whole? So basically, we're asking, how does the art that you create or art like the art that you create impact your community, impact society, impact the world? What is the impact that you see your art making? We just want an open, authentic response in that, and then you upload it as a file into Accepted. Very similarly, we also ask you to complete a video that is answering a question here. The video, 90 seconds max, against very, very short. And the question is, why is the art form you are applying in important to you? What are your goals for yourself as an artist in this art form? So the video is kind of how you view your personal art, your personal attachment to it. And the essay is how you see your art going out and impacting the world, kind of the two folds there. So those are the two big questions. We also have a number of art form specific questions that'll pop up in Accepted. Those are much more short form, and they're just giving us some context to who you are as an artist and the level of access you've had. Like Sean said, not every school has art classes at this point, so we're aware of that. We want to know the context of where you're coming to GSA from. So yeah, Sean, any additional thoughts on the essay, the video, art form specific questions?
Yeah, just be your authentic self, right? And answer honestly and really try to like think about those questions for yourself. I would also say maybe not necessarily stick to a script for the video piece, but definitely practice beforehand. I know we've had previous applicants get a little frustrated because you hit record and I think it's a one shot
Mm,
go, right? So like practice that a little bit for yourself or just rehearse it a few times. It doesn't, I'm not saying it has to be perfect. We don't judge the quality of the video. We're not judging editing, any of that kind of stuff. It's about your honest, authentic self. And it just is a way to kind of give a little more rounded experience to who you are as a person because we're seeing you through a portfolio and through these answered questions. So the video is really helpful for that. But yeah, just be honest, be fun, be yourself, right? And same thing with the questions, and they are twofold, right? So they can kind of help inform each other, and that's intentional. So think about that first question for yourself, write that out, and then whatever kind of doesn't fit into that 250 words folds into the next subsection. So,
absolutely. Yeah, and one thing I will mention while we're talking about uploading the essay portion, particularly in this applicant guide, whenever you're uploading something, we give you how you should write out the title of that file. And that's because you're going to be submitting a lot of different files for this portfolio. So we want to make sure we know what we're looking at. And when we're looking for something particular in your application, we can quickly find it. So be sure as you are uploading all of your materials to double check the applicant guide to make sure everything's formatted the way that it should be. As you can see under the personal short essay section, we ask that you title it Personal Short Essay. It's very easy, very intuitive, but definitely important to keep in mind as you're uploading everything. So that's kind of the first half. Now we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes, the artistic core of your application here, and that is the portfolio. So there's 8 total works in the portfolio section of your application. 4 of those are intentionally curated and required portfolio pieces, and then 4 kind of give you a chance to curate your own half of the portfolio. We'll talk more about that specifically, but we definitely want to start with the 4 required portfolio pieces. So these are an object study or a still life, a self-portrait, an environment or landscape piece, and a 3D piece made from recycled and or found material. So we'll talk more about that once we get to the end of this bit. But for these 4 required pieces, as you're thinking of what you have and what you want to create and you're pulling different things, note that one of them it must be done in graphite pencil only. So no other tools on that piece, just graphite pencil. For all of your other pieces, they can be any variety of wet or dry media, so pen and ink, charcoal, colored pencils, paint, anything like that. And then the self-portrait and all of these pieces should be done from direct observation, especially the self-portrait. So using a mirror, using your eyes, we want you to create that from what you're seeing and to the best of your ability, put it on the page or put it in clay, whatever material you're using, not referencing a pre-existing image that you're kind of creating a grid on or just trying to replicate in whatever medium you're using. We want you to use your eyes in a direct observation for these 4 pieces specifically. Let's see here. That's basically what that says. Digital illustrations and photographs may not be submitted for these pieces, but you can use those as a part of the 4 remaining portfolio pieces. So keep that in mind as you're pulling for the first 3. Let's talk about the 3D piece that is required at the end of this. So this is kind of our conceptual piece as a part of the GSA portfolio. We want you to make something beautiful, meaningful, useful from items that others might only see as trash. This could be cardboard, paper, plastic bottles, natural materials you find outside, like branches, sticks, stones, things like that. The intent here is that you're not going out and buying art materials. We want you to find things that are in your everyday life and turn that into something like a wearable art piece, a sculpture, really anything that your heart desires at this point. The sculpture can be as large as you'd like, but we try to limit it so it's not smaller than an average shoebox. We're not going to hold up a measuring tape to your piece, but just try to keep that kind of dimensions in mind. We give you some dimensions here if you really want to follow it to a T, but that's kind of the rough size of what we're looking for, anything larger than that. You can decorate it, you can paint it, you can draw on it, but you don't have to. And yeah, this prompt is intentionally vague. We get a lot of questions about the 3D piece in the required section of this portfolio, but that's why we try to keep it vague. We want you guys to have your creative juices flowing. We want you to take something and see your process and see where you solve the problem of this piece. You can navigate these limitations however you want, make mistakes, experiment, be open to scrapping your ideas and starting over, just creating something out of nothing. We want to see where you guys take this prompt rather than following all of the specific rules that we lay out for you. So yeah, Sean, anything that I didn't cover there in those 4 pieces?
No, that's pretty good. I just want to double down and just kind of explain to the group on why we have this. So this is kind of in standard with like national portfolio requirements, right? So this is something that, regardless of your GSA, if you get into GSA, this applicant experience will hopefully be helpful for college, no matter what, right? Especially if you're thinking about any kind of graphic design, art school, architecture, design, anything like that, animation, all that kind of stuff. These are all still pretty standard portfolio requirements, right? We really do ask you to stick to those 4, right? And we do notice when students don't draw from from life or observation, right? So really with that self-portrait, I know a lot of students dread the self-portrait, but really do your best in front of a mirror. Don't use a photograph. We can see the grid marks. We know how you guys do that, right? So just, be your authentic self in your portfolio and how you draw and how you mark make, right? That's what's going to be really interesting. The 3D piece, yes, it seems daunting and overwhelming, but it's really a way of thinking more broadly and more openly. It is pretty constrained in the sense that it has to be a 3D piece around the size of a shoebox, right? That opens up a lot of possibilities. You can make stuff out of recycled cardboard. And yeah, just to double down on Ren's comment and what we have here, we don't want you guys spending money on any of that project, right? The idea is that you make something from nothing. As artists, that's a really important way of like engaging in the world and being creative and thinking about an empty white canvas, an empty white piece of paper, a ball of clay becoming something. So that's where the 3D work really comes from.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so that's kind of our four required pieces. There's also four that are kind of more open to interpretation. So you guys get to choose these four remaining portfolio pieces from your existing, portfolios of art, or if you want to create something new, absolutely feel free to do that. We always like to say that we still would prefer if you include a variety of mediums in these four pieces. So try to show us who you are as an artist at the widest scope. You might be really, really great at painting and drawing, or it might be your favorite type of medium of art, which is really awesome. But if you have a lot to show us, we want to see that, and we want to see all of the things you can accomplish, because there are a lot of different art forms that we explore here at GSA. So we want to see how you could possibly fit into that community as well. For all of the portfolio pieces, we do give you some tips and tricks here in the applicant guide, so I'll touch on these while we're talking about the remaining pieces to maybe spark some ideas and some creativity of what you could include in your portfolio. So just something to keep in mind, if your piece of work is not already digital, you're going to need to digitize it in order to upload it to Accepted. So you can take photos of it, you can scan it, anything to get it into a file so that you can upload it on the Accepted platform works for us. If you're submitting images of 3D work, you can submit up to 3 images per piece. So you can do different detail shots, different angles, things like that for the one vase or sculpture, whatever it is that you are submitting for us. While GSA has previously encouraged photographing your work next to a ruler, this is no longer suggested or expected. Instead, you're going to include the dimensions of each piece in your portfolio cover sheet, which we'll talk about next. Make sure that all of your images are upright or the way that you intend them to be viewed. So we're not trying to crane our necks or thinking that you intended this piece to be upside down when it's really not how you intended us to view it. We want to make sure we're getting your creative vision as soon as we look at the piece. And save and name all of your files individually so that they correspond to the pieces. So this is kind of laying out how those pieces should be uploaded onto Accepted. So again, we know what it is that we are looking at. Yeah, John, is there anything that you are looking at in particular for these four remaining portfolio pieces?
No, we just want to see the diversity of your experience as an artist and maker. So these should be completed works, right? There is an opportunity to include some other additional works from your sketchbooks and stuff like that, but right, like whatever you're working on outside of class that you're very proud of, those kinds of things. If you took a 3D course by any chance or have experience with clay or any kind of other materials, welding, right? We've had students that have experience welding, which is amazing. So really, it's really kind of a choose your own adventure in terms of that. I mean, we kind of cover the basis in terms of the first four. You obviously have a still life, self-portrait, landscape, and the 3D piece. So just kind of doubling down on what your drawing is like, maybe some painting experience, stuff like that. So just keep it open and keep it broad.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so I mentioned the portfolio cover sheet. What that is basically one document that outlines all of the portfolio pieces we just talked about. So you can probably find a template for this on Canva or Google Docs, something like that, or you can make your own 100%. But what we're looking for on this portfolio cover sheet is kind of a roadmap to your portfolio. Each one should kind of have a little thumbnail reference image of the work that you're talking about so we can connect the two. And then the title of the work, the year of completion, the approximate dimensions of that piece and the medium that you used. You should also include a brief description of your process for creating the work, and if it's a collaboration, let us know how you contributed to that specific piece. So this gives us kind of the context for each of the different pieces in your portfolio. I'm not super familiar with this concept, so Sean, is there anything that I kind of missed on that list?
No, you're right. I mean, it's one of those things that this is kind of standard practice, right, for all visual art forms, whether it's graphic design, architecture design. We review a lot of applicants, and this is a way of us, this is kind of a cheat sheet or a roadmap for us in those things when we need a quick reference and we can kind of see a broader kind of experience and kind of cheat sheet essentially.
Yeah,
So it's
love
really
it.
important. It gets overlooked quite a bit, but it's really important. Just and it doesn't need, like I said, you can. Yeah, Rand, you brought up a good point. There's stock versions of this
Mhm.
out there that you can just upload with your image and then you type in that stuff.
Love it. So, like Sean mentioned earlier, as a part of your application, there's also an option, or not an option, there's a part of the application where you have the opportunity to upload sketchbook pages or 3D experiments that you're working on. So these are reflections of your creative journey, letting us know what your brainstorming process looks like, what your creative process looks like. And these can be different in-process drawings, experiments, things that you're working on right now that might not be completely tied up in a nice little bow like some of your portfolio pieces are. Sean, can you give us any kind of insight to what you're looking for when you're looking at this section of the application?
Yeah, and something that I just realized we probably like omitted, but probably should be welcome to is like this is a good opportunity for digital images too, for those that are working in digital illustration design stuff like that. That's where this kind of stuff goes. So for those that are on the webinar that have some experience in Procreate or some other kind of apps, feel free to include those kind of that kind of work there. We do want to see like one or two sketchbook images. That's always helpful to know how maybe, some studies or thumbnails of what is in your broader portfolio, like how you started on things or how you're thinking and mapping out your practice. And then, yeah, once again, the 3D opportunities are maybe it's part of the failed experiment that you started with for the 3D project, right?
Mhm.
We're not trying to ask you to do additional work. These are things that already exist or things that you've already made. And so this is just kind of to give you a chance to see some of your other ways of thinking and, designing, drawing, arting, and journaling, right? So it's really helpful for us to kind of figure out who you are as an artist.
Yeah. So if it isn't clear, these are completely separate from your 8 portfolio pieces. Yes, they can be kind of, beginning musings of those pieces, but they are not included in those 8 pieces. They are completely separate from that. And for that reason, they don't need to be included on your portfolio cover sheet. This is a separate aspect of the application. So title for how you should upload those included in this section as well. And that is the complete list of what we're looking for in the preliminary round of applications. Everything you need to submit by January 18th is included in what we just talked about. So I know it's a lot, but that's why we have this roadmap for you guys to kind of go back and reference. And now we'll talk about the final round of applications. So hopefully, once we get a chance to look at all of your applications, you are selected to join us for the final round of applications. We'll let you know if that is the case February 13th, right around then, if you're going to be joining us for the second round. We try to whittle down the numbers a little bit so we can get more time to speak with each of you during this final round. And what that looks like is a pre-review questionnaire that's going to be accepted, very similar to those questions, those art form specific questions that you answered as a part of the preliminary round. But just to give us more context, more idea of who you are as an artist, some of your goals, maybe moving forward, things like that. These questionnaires are hopefully used for us to customize questions in your interview to get to know you a bit more. We spent a lot of time looking at your portfolio and all of your questions at this point, so we want to know what we can know from speaking to you directly, get some time face to face. And that face-to-face will be a virtual portfolio review and interview. So it'll be held on a platform like Zoom. We will email you through accepted, give you a little message there when your time slot is during that March 13th or 14th weekend. I think it's a Friday and a Saturday. And this is just a chance for you to meet with some of our adjudicators like Sean and our other faculty members and talk more about who you are as an artist. You don't need to have your portfolio pieces on hand for this. We've already been looking at those, but it is a good idea if you want to have some additional pieces kind of on deck, within reach, if we get a chance to talk about those. It's a very short time slot, it's 10 minutes, so they're very intentional with the questions that they choose, I'm sure, but every now and then we'll get a chance to look at additional art pieces, just not always. Sean, as somebody who's in those rooms, anything that you want to add about what this section of the application looks like?
Yeah, once again, it's like the video component of the earlier part of the application. It's for us a chance to get to know you a little bit better, ask you some questions off the cuff. A lot of progress happens from January where you submit your portfolio and where you are in March potentially, right? So that's what Ren was mentioning. If you have some new work that you're excited about or pieces you're continuing, that kind of stuff is always welcome to see. But really for us, it's for us to get to know you all a little bit better, ask you some questions, and kind of see who you are as a person, and what you would bring to the GSA community.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so as we're talking about all of these things that we're asking you to supply for us, I think it's only fair that we talk about what it is we're actually looking for in those pieces so you can kind of customize what you're choosing and think about, if you've got some competing pieces here that you're not sure what to choose, a good way to whittle down that decision is by looking at our criteria. So this is kind of not exactly a checklist of things that we're looking for, but things that we use to guide what it is we're looking at and what we're looking for within these pieces. So this covers everything from formal art elements, your technical skill, and also, your originality, your creative voice, your dedication to your art form, your growth in your community. Sean, as one of the adjudicators, what do these individual criteria points look like when people are selecting certain pieces?
Yeah, so thinking about things like these are also in line with things that I'm sure a lot of you all have experienced if you're taking visual art classes or taking private lessons, or if you're just interested in visual art, using design principles and sense of composition, right? Making sure things are balanced, composed, and finished, right? To a certain extent. Technical skill is something that can be learned, right? But we want to see kind of your progress and where that's going. And so that's where a lot of the direct observation work comes in, is really seeing that technical skill of how to translate what you're looking at into an image, a composed image, a drawing, a painting, a print, et cetera, clay model, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a two-dimensional thing. Craftsmanship's pretty important, right? We want, the care you bring into the work is the care that the viewer is going to look at it, right? So making sure the documentation's good, but also that the work looks good and well put together, not crumbled up, not, torn up, that kind of stuff, unless that's intentional to the work itself, right? Originality and creative voice is really important. We understand that a lot of you all are interested in character design, gaming design, all that kind of stuff. But really, a lot of schools, especially with the onslaught of AI right now, are wanting to see original images, right? So if you are going to include character design, please, please, please make sure that it's original characters for us, right? In visual art. Now, that might be different in other disciplines, but for us right now, originality is pretty important, and that shows your creative voice, right? Now, that being said, we want to encourage your growth, right? So just, power through and think about if you are doing a lot of characters that aren't your own, what would you do to create your own character, that kind of thing. But originality is pretty important. And then dedication to your art form. So how you are committing to it, right? If you're struggling with direct observation, are you practicing? Are you doing other sketches? Are you thinking about landscapes differently? How are you kind of articulating yourself, but also extending yourself into those uncomfortable zones and sticking to that and being transparent about that? And there's opportunities in the application to kind of showcase that or explain that, right? Like, I am not confident in pen and ink, but I chose this because I felt like I wanted this to be a part of my portfolio, right? So those are the things that we're looking at. We're looking at, a variety of just, it's a lot of images, right? But that's hopefully if you follow the applicant guide and really kind of, if you're proud of your work, which I hope you are, you should be, because this is an arduous process. you will come away with feeling pretty good about yourself because you have completed a pretty broad application, right? That will hopefully be carried and built upon for your college acceptance, and potentially if you're into the creative field as an artist, designer, maker, thinker, that kind of stuff. Did that answer the question, Ren? I
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely. That was
lost track a
really
little bit because I was like reading the notes and making sure I hit all of them. I want to make sure, and I'm sure we'll have room for questions, right? But
yeah.
we just want to, these are like if you all as applicants are ever unsure, just follow the guide, right? It's not. I know it's a lot to ask of you all, but trust me, it helps us understand who you are. And it really helps for like an equitable process across the board so that we can kind of make sure that everybody's being represented in a variety of different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like as we're talking about the criteria here, this is also a really good point to talk about how visual art fits into the overall landscape of GSA. Obviously, we have some folks here who are interested in multiple art forms. So, from kind of the admin side and the design side of things, this is the criteria that we have for our visual art applications. It's really based in studio art, drawing, painting, kind of those traditional in-person art forms, like you are working with your hands in a studio, more fine art, if that's what you want to call it. If you're more interested in architecture and design, if you want to attend GSA for architecture and design, that's kind of applied design, problem solving through building things and creating things to be applicable to real life study. And for graphic design, our newest art form, that is kind of the visual communication aspect of GSA. It's a lot of 2D material, trying to promote something, market something, get an idea across through a specific graphic design piece. So this kind of gives you an idea of visual art, but I know that's a question that we get a lot with some of our applicants who are interested in multiple art forms. It's kind of an broad overview. Again, I really recommend if you guys are interested in other art forms, looking at those applicant guides as well, because specifically with our film and photo, architecture and design, graphic design, our more visual art forms, a lot of these criteria and the things that we're asking you to upload are similar, but they're very different, and they're different for a reason, because while these pieces kind of ebb and flow and work together in a lot of real world applications, they are separate at GSA for an intentional reason, because this is such a vast community of artists, and we want to make sure that we're really curating these programs to what it is you want to get out of GSA. So this is kind of visual art that gives you an idea of what it is we're looking for in these applications. So as we're nearing the end here, we do provide some tips and tricks just as you're creating your application for visual art. These are purely suggestions. They're not eligibility requirements. They're not included in that criteria list. But we say that you can include things that are a part of school projects and also work completed outside of school. We want to see recent work in your portfolio, not something that you did 3 years ago. Again, we want to diversify your portfolio with a mix of mediums. And as you're progressing through the application, you should be ready to talk about your process, talk about who you are as an artist, why you make the choices that you do, because that's what we really want to hear. Everything that we're looking at is going to be very visually impressive. You guys are incredible artists. We want to know why you made the choices that you did as well. So, think about things that make your work distinctly yours and those choices that you make. Pay attention to the criteria that we just mentioned. And remember at the end of the day that the adjudicators are super excited to see everything that you guys create. Every year, I am just blown away by what all of our applicants are able to create. We want you to do well. We want you to join us this summer. So, be excited for yourself. You're already making a really great big step towards being an artist by attending this webinar, by looking into GSA, by, distinguishing yourself as an artist in high school. So we want to help you reach the next level of your artistry, whether that be at GSA or whether that be outside of GSA. So Sean, any final tips or tricks about the application here?
Yeah, no, I think Ren, you hit it pretty well. I mean, to go back to that, pay attention to the presentation. That's what I was talking about in that craftsmanship, like the care that you bring to the work and how you want to show it is how we see it, right? So that's really important. And then to really kind of just double down on put yourself out there, right? And don't be afraid. This is a community that's very welcoming and very interested, and we care about young Kentucky artists, and we want you all to succeed. So this is an opportunity to really kind of put your best foot forward and really look to your boundary and push through that. And we're excited to see what you guys submit. I love looking through the portfolios. It's like every January I look forward to it. And every summer, us as faculty members are taking, we're upending our lives to be with you all for 3 weeks, to be in the studio, working with the physical media. So it's a really special, rare place. And it's a practice that's active. I'm a living practicing artist and educator. Like this is a thing that you can do with your life. And for me, I didn't think it was going to happen until I went through GSA. Like I didn't even think I was going to go to college, go to GSA, and it like totally opened up and changed my life. And I wouldn't be where I am without this program. So I'm really excited for that opportunity for each and every one of you all.
Absolutely. So, just to kind of recap what we talked about at the very beginning of things, give you guys this timeline again. Our applications are open. You have until January 18th to submit everything in that preliminary round. Hopefully, you'll join us in March for the final round of auditions. You'll know on February 13th. And hopefully, we'll get to the end of the line and you will be a part of our GSA community. We'll let you know if that's the case on April 10th, 2026. It's usually towards the end of the day. We try to make it so you're not constantly checking your phone in school. So just kind of be aware of that. And then if you are going to join us ultimately for GSA 2026, that is going to be from Sunday, June 7th to Saturday, June 27th up at NKU. So in the years past, we've had both a session in June and July. This year, we are only having a June session for a number of reasons. But as you're starting to plan your summer for next year, any vacations, other summer opportunities that you have, be aware that if you want to prioritize GSA, it's going to be taking place through the month of June. So that's kind of what you can expect down the line. If you have any questions along the way that we're not going to answer tonight, we're definitely going to try. There's two people that you can reach out to. If you're having issues with accepted, you're having trouble uploading your materials, you can't access your account for whatever reason, they have a really wonderful technical support team that you can reach out to. This information's in the applicant guide. You can also ask a GSA admin for this contact information, but they should be able to help you with specific tech support. But if you have any questions about the content of the application, requirements for the application, or just GSA in general, please, please, please reach out to GSA admin. It's literally our job to do this, and we love hearing from you guys throughout the application process. And then once you kind of join us for the end of that, we're in office every week, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, unless there's a particular holiday. But you can always send us an email, give us a call, leave us a voicemail, or like I said, DM us on social media, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. So we're really excited to see these applications. And as I kind of close things out here, we'll move on to the Q&A section. Sean, anything that came up to you while I was kind of wrapping things up there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we got a couple questions in the Q&A. So let's see. Let me bring that up. So we'll start with Marin's question. Can you use white graphite or does it have to be traditional? I mean, white can be a component of it. I'm not as familiar with white graphite, but I would just stick to a traditional like pencil, if you have a regular HB, 2B, 3B, 4B, a variety of those. I would just stick to one drawing being that. That doesn't mean you can't include white graphite in that image, if that answers your question. Let's see. Isaac, how many people are accepted in visual art? We usually accept 40.
Yep,
So, yep,
that is
it's a
consistent with this year.
yeah,
We're going to have around 275 students in general. 40 of those are going to be visual art students.
yeah. So anonymous, you asked, let's see, what kind of questions are asked during the final round of interview? Do you have any tips for things to do beforehand to be more prepared, feel less anxious? We're very good at de-escalating that tension pretty quick. It's a very chill vibe. It's not an audition. And it is an interview, but it's more of a conversation. It's an opportunity to we usually leave if there is enough time, which there usually is, because we're pretty choice with our questions. We allow you to ask some questions about the program, about us. So it's I don't really have anything other than just like be yourself. And it's not going to be these curveball questions. It's very much walking us through your portfolio, who you are as an artist, why you want to be a part of the GSA community, what that means for you, that kind of stuff. So those are kind of the questions and the frameworks. And then we usually try to have at least a minute or two for you to ask some questions of us as adjudicators as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another way too, if you have folks in your life who have gone through the GSA process and you want to hear directly
Yep.
from them what their application process was like or their experience with the program, I always love to say I'm a little bit biased as the alumni coordinator, but I think our alumni are some of the greatest resources that we have
Yep.
because they can speak to how much fun they had at the program and how much, it meant to them at that point. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say for those that are wanting to feel less anxious and be prepared, I would say also make sure for those that are on Central Time to double check that they're on Central Time. That's an issue that we've ran in before. And don't worry about any of the technical stuff. We have issues every year where somebody's camera cuts off or the internet is dropping in and out. Don't let that anxiety kind of boil up. We deal with that all the time, and we can pivot on a dime with you all. So just want to be clear about that.
Yeah. And we'll also have folks standing by during that application process to help you if you lost the link to the Zoom meeting or any of those things. So we can help you get there if you're a little bit flustered in the moment, 100%. Yeah. Brandon asks, can crocheted creations count as a piece of art in your application?
Absolutely. That would be a great additional of the four. That could potentially be part of your 3D piece. Yes, absolutely. Yep. We would love to see crochet work. Especially, I would say that fashion is a part of that, but also if it's sculptural, bonus points, right? But fashion's fine too. We understand that that's part of the making process. So yes, absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, I'll kind of ramble for a little bit here as I'm waiting to see if any other last minute questions come through. But yeah, guys, at the end of the day, this application, we just want to see who you are as artists and we want to get an idea of what you're bringing to the table. I don't feel like you need to fit in any sort of specific box to attend GSA. We have a wide variety of artists every single year, and the individuality of everybody is really what we look for on a day-to-day basis because we want to have as many perspectives and as many different types of people in our community as possible. There was one important thing that I wanted to say there and it's escaping me now, but at the end of the day we want to see who you are, and we're just really excited to see everything that comes through. Oh, hi Poplar.
Yeah,
Sorry
I
about
was
that.
gonna. Yeah, I was reading that one too. Also, too. I mean, this used to be, I think, pretty standard back when we actually had like to submit actual portfolios. But I really strongly encourage you all to apply to two art forms if you can. It's one of those things that if you have some interest, because there's a couple things that are really important. GSA can, if you are on that track of wanting to be a visual artist, that's great. You can be a visual artist and get it, do that, right? But also GSA, like with design and architecture, with film and photo, and now this graphic design component, there's a couple more tracks and a couple more opportunities where that might open up some possibilities for yourself. And it is only a 3-week program, right? So if you are at a particularly visual art focused high school program and you have a pretty strong portfolio, but you're like, oh, this seems interesting. I'm not trying to say like don't apply to visual art. Please apply to us too, but like also apply, like put yourself out there and see what happens in that process because you might learn something about yourself and you might discover something that you never considered before. We have a lot of visual artists who end up in at UK architecture. We love that, right? Like they don't have to necessarily be visual artists always, right? A
Right.
lot of art educators, right? Those kinds of things. But I would say for you all, if you have the capacity, and I know that we asked that question at the beginning, and some people are interested, put yourself out there for film and photo, for graphic design, or for the rare birds, the vagrants birds that are the performing artists and visual artists, go for musical theater and visual art, right? They're out there. We've had a few of them, they're very rare, but we'd love to see it, right? So definitely, if you can and have the capacity definitely I would encourage you to double apply if you have the portfolio for it.
Absolutely. Alrighty, well, I think that is all of our questions that we have for tonight. So, Sean, thanks again for joining us. It's always great to have your input as somebody who's ultimately going to be looking at these applications come January. And you're always a valued member of the community, being an alum and being a working artist. I think it's really cool that you hit all of those different aspects of what can come out of GSA. You started with us and you've grown beyond and come back, which I always find really, really cool as the alumni coordinator. So, thanks again. And, if anyone in the chat has any questions that they didn't get a chance to ask, feel free to reach out to GSA admin. We're going to be here. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck with your applications. Can't wait to see them.
Bye bye.